Here we are. Hey, everyone. Andy Hall with Sammy 420 Atheist. We're just hanging out. Yeah. Hey, I should let you all know that I can only do this until 11:15 today. I actually have a job interview, a screening. So even though I have a job, it's a part-time job, I'm looking to expand into full-time or more job. I'm looking for more job. What's up, Dave?
There he is.
So I can only do this till 11:15 today, because I have that job screening telephone call and then my actual other job. So so 11:15 today is when I'm out. How you doing, Dave?
I am well. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you fine.
I didn't test anything. I thought we were going to have a few seconds before you jumped in, but you were on it.
Oh, dude, yeah, because I'm obsessive about time, I guess. Usually I spend like 2 or 3 minutes just walking around my room because it helps turn my brain on and off, right? Turn my brain, get the blood going.
Do a little reset. Yeah.
A little reset, but there's no reset today. I'm just powering through this. That's what I'm doing.
Well, I get it. When your time is limited for the after stream, just jump right in. Jump right in at first. See what happens. What could possibly go wrong?
Nothing. Nothing whatsoever. So interesting points that I updated my OS, the operating system. Yeah, the Mac OS yesterday. I did a little test. It was still choppy. I went on the chat with the help chat for StreamYard. Absolutely not helpful. They tried, right? They tried. And so, I don't know. I'm just going to see how this plays out.
Yeah. I mean, it only chopped for a few seconds yesterday. It wasn't that big a deal.
Have
you done a DSL test on like Ookla or something like that to see what your upstream speed is?
I wish I knew what those words meant.
I'll send you a link on Twitter. Yeah.
Send me a link on Twitter. I would appreciate that. Yeah. Hey, Rage.
Hey, what's up, yo?
How's it going? I got some static coming in from your end, I think.
Oh, that's probably my AC.
Oh, okay. That's fine.
I'll mute.
Keep your AC running. And it isn't that much of a static either. Considering...
Sorry, go on.
Considering the tinnitus that's always running in my ears, that static does not bother. Okay, true story. I'm sitting next to my girlfriend, and the cat's on the other side of her. And she's like, wow, this cat really purrs loudly. And I'm like, I don't hear anything. She goes, you can't hear that? No, because I have tinnitus. And it is like, it just blocks out a lot of sound. And at least low frequent, low volume sounds. And even though a cat, it might be a loud purr and only sitting a few feet away from me, it just go. I can't even hear.
So when you pick up a seashell, does it say, put me down?
It says, fuck you. That's what it says.
Wow.
I got to remember when I mute to unmute. I had the same thing when I worked in a factory for several years, automotive business. And as I was working my way up, I was on the line and it was very loud machinery. And we had options of wearing earplugs and I didn't. And now I have, substantial hearing loss and the ringing in my ears all the time. And yeah, the weed kind of makes it louder. If I'm really high, the ringing's a lot louder than
really?
it was. Yeah.
Is that a blood flow thing or what's that related to? I've never heard of that before.
I'm not sure. It's just, it's just something that I've always noticed. If I smoke, then the ringing in my ears gets louder for some reason. I just thought it was because I'm high.
Yeah. At my work the other day, we were on our way from the dock back to the lunchroom for lunch. And the crane behind us is a 120-ton crane. It's a huge behemoth, one of the biggest ones on the west coast of Canada. And the guy was having a problem with the head that lifts they're called deck lids. So across the width of a ship, there's usually 4 deck lids, and they weigh about 60 tons each. So this thing lifts them up and drops them on the ground to get them out of the way so they can unload the cargo from inside. And the guy put one down behind us and we were like, oh, okay, he's done. But he was having a problem with the head. So he picked it up and dropped it hard to shake the head loose right behind us while we weren't ready for it. And like the ground shakes and there's like this colossal boom and you're like, oh, that can't be good for your ears.
No.
Yeah. I went to a lot of concerts young too. Front row, right? It's not a good thing to do that too much. It's a good time to do it occasionally, but you do it too much, you're definitely going to have some ear trouble.
Yeah.
They actually, in Vancouver, they, depending on which concert you're going to and what the volume of the concert is, I don't know if it's mandated that they offer them, but they all give out earplugs now.
I'm pretty sure Green Day is the one that did it.
Yeah, I saw Judas Priest Turbo, and that was pretty loud.
Yep. I went to a Dropkick Murphys concert over at somewhere in Boston for St. Patrick's Day, actually about 3 years ago. And I'm like, wow, has it always been this loud? It seems loud. Has it always been this loud?
That's just your 40s catching up with you.
Oh, I'm glad that you think that was 3 years ago. All right, so yeah, we'll go with 40s. Yeah, that's good. I'm happy with that number. That's funny. The older that you get, the happier you are with a number.
And 40s, or what did they say? 50s, the new 30 or something like that. Yeah. You mentioned that you were going to be in a different state in a week or so.
Colorado.
Are you going to be around for your birthday, or are we going to have to celebrate that?
I will definitely be here for my birthday.
That's at the end of June. Sorry, not at the end of May.
So I talked with a girlfriend, figured out when we're actually leaving. So we're leaving on the 5th of June.
Yeah.
And then and I'll be back. She's taking the whole week off because she can work from home. Me, I got to work and be there when I'm working. So I'll probably be back on the 8th or so. And
okay. So it's just a little detour in life. Yeah.
Exactly. It's been a while since I've taken like a vacation, like a week or two. So because I'm an American, and we don't do that here in the United States.
Yeah, I've never actually taken a vacation.
I used to when I was young and smart.
I don't know what those two things are, young and smart.
I know. But I've forgotten them now. Hey, do you remember when? Nope. I don't think that was me. Yeah, it was you. I have pictures.
Yeah.
So did you arrange for Kitty Biscuit to be taken care of, shall we say? And I don't mean mom taking care of.
Dave, I have to hand it to you. If I ever make any money whatsoever, I'm going to send you a check for being a handler of mine, or being, and someone being responsible, right?
Oh, God, that's so horrible.
It is actually. Hearing some of your stories, it's like, well, I think Dave could be the responsible one out of the two of us. So,
are you saying you just realized you hadn't figured out what you're doing with your cat until Dave just said it?
No, I figured out that when Dave mentioned it yesterday, when I was hanging out with my girlfriend during the same conversation where I can't hear the cat purr, I'm like, so Dave mentioned about cat sitting and stuff. What are we doing with that? And she already had a plan. We have some very nice people, because even though we live in a building, it's attached to, it's considered to be a condo. It was an older building that had another building, built up and attached to it. So we have two very nice people, two groups of people who are very nice, who will come in and watch the cat. And maybe my kid will come up too. My boy can drive, and so he may come up and hang out with the cat too.
Can't your daughter drive now too? Didn't she just get her license?
She didn't get her license. She took the online portion, the book.
Oh, okay.
So she still has to get behind the wheel and actually start driving.
So she has a learner's permit or something like
Exactly.
that. That's what we call it.
Yeah.
Nice. So the girlfriend was on it. She's like 3 steps ahead of you.
Well, when you're, this is the and this is what they teach you in improv, by the way. This is like maybe 9 months ago, we had an instructor on that was from an improv company. What is it? Second City, right? In Chicago, the Second City improv company. He was a great guest. And what they teach you in improv is that they don't tell you to go and hit the next step. They tell you to hit the next step after the next step.
Yeah.
And so when I'm interacting with my girlfriend, who is at least one standard deviation smarter than I am, and that's a very nice way of putting it too, by the way. I always think of, I try to think improv like. I try to think, all right, she already got me in the next step. So so maybe it's the next step after that I should really be addressing, or talking about.
She sounds wonderful. And yeah, I hope you remember before I mentioned that she should have her own segment on the show. And now I'm thinking that would be a bad idea because you just end up her Ed McMahon.
I would be. Well, what it is that she's really quick-witted too. That was one of the things that really made us click on the initial dates, was that, you get the references.
Wow.
You understood my profile on OkCupid, and we just glommed on pretty well.
You were on OK Stupid.
I was on OK Stupid. Dude, I have stories about OkCupid. I have stories. And I think I mentioned them before, right? Some of the questions that they ask you, like, is the sun bigger than the moon? And a lot of people get that question wrong, my friends.
Well, no, there's multiple answers to that. Does it appear larger in the nighttime sky?
I think we know what they're talking about the diameter, Dave. Don't try to be an apologist for stupid.
But if the question was, is the sun bigger than the moon, there is only one answer to that.
No, I'm gonna argue this one. It's not it's not the hill I want to die on, but
tell me about the flat Earth, Dave.
Speaking of dying on hills, Dave, I do have a question. So if you're from Alaska, you are Alaskan, correct? If you're from Africa, you're African.
well,
If you're from America, you're American. Now, if you're from Australia,
don't say it. Don't.
you are Australian.
I know where he's going.
So are you Canadian or are you from Canada?
You bastard.
That is my question. You must pick one.
I am from Canada, and I am a Canadian.
You want your cake and eat it too.
Well,
We-
yeah,
we
that is
do-
a very Canadian thing.
We do flip that up here in the States, though, Sammy. Like Michigan, we call ourselves Michiganders, but it's mainly because we're pretty stupid here.
Oh.
Blazing splits the hair. If we talk about diameter, since the sun is a plasmatic object, it doesn't have a solid surface. I understand what you're saying.
Yeah. The sun appears large, but that is just the incendiary glow around it from the nuclear explosions emanating from the inside that take tens of thousands of years for neutrons to make it to the Earth from there. Yeah.
I think the scholarly consensus, the scientific consensus, is that the sun is bigger than the moon.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure even on the atomic level, the sheer mass of the sun.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, if you're measuring mass, there's no comparison. And if you're measuring appearance in the sky, it would depend on when and where you take that measurement from, because if you measure it from Alaska in midwinter, the sun appears enormous in the sky.
Okay, so let me expound on this OkCupid question and answer section. Is that you can answer the question and then put a comment down underneath that. Now, at no point did anyone who answered the moon is bigger went into this sort of detail.
There was no elaboration on that.
There is no elaboration, no.
Yeah, that's the flat Earth people.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, was the answer, the moon is the largest light in the firmament.
Oh, speaking of which, you were talking earlier about people doing the "I'll pray for you" thing and how you respond to it, and that deal. I witnessed the perfect response to that the other day, and somebody said, I'll pray for you," and they said, "Oh, would you like to pray now?" And they said, "Yes." And they said, "Here," and they took their hand and they squeezed their hand quite firmly, and they said, "Powerful Vishnu, please save our rotten souls." And they started praying to Vishnu, and you could see the person's face on the other side just going into sheer terror.
I like that.
It's clever.
The only way that could have been better is if they went into a tree pose too. And that was a callback to yesterday's story too about.
I did like that.
I had to go and Google the tree pose. Just
Me too.
I couldn't understand what the issue was, and I still don't. It
really-
is one of the most innocuous looking poses.
I mean, downward dog is far more sexual
Absolutely.
than the tree pose.
You know how I know it's not a sexual thing is because never in all of my life have I seen a woman, either a dancer or exotic dancer, make that pose to entice someone to adore them. That is not where that goes.
No.
It's like, wow, she has great balance.
Yeah. Blazing says, "Dear Thor, let my newfound friend and I die in glorious battle and join you at a feast in Valhalla."
I'm totally using that.
I'm gonna go off of your.
I still like the Hail Satan. I mean, that gets the Christians every time. You just start off with a good old Hail Satan, and just hopefully you have a camera to record their facial expressions.
Oh,
Yeah.
Well, me and a group of rambunctious teen friends, when I was probably about 15 or 16, it was about 7 o'clock in the evening, so it was dark, and we walked past a Brethren church. We call them Brethren. They do go by another name, not Latter Days. Brethren. Anyway, we walked past and just yelled out, "Hail Satan," as loud as we could, and a bunch of them chased us.
Chased you?
Yeah, I assumed to bash us. I thought that wasn't very Christian.
No.
Church of Brethren is a Christian denomination with origins in the, not going to say it, German, something New Baptist, Schwarzenauer New Baptist. Okay.
All right. Yep.
Brethren, the World Assembly. There you go. That's what I've heard. Brethren World Assembly.
Okay. Yeah. I there's so many sects of Christianity. I've not heard of the Brethren before. Well, I'm glad that you were able to outrace them. So.
Well,
Yeah.
Baptist, here in America, that's pretty much your fundamental root, right? So, like, your more fundamental Christians tend to be Baptist, and then Baptists themselves. There's so many different kinds of damn Baptists nowadays. It's you can't even get a grasp on what being a Baptist is anymore. I grew up as Southern Baptist. Now, the Matt Powells of the world would consider that just heretical as hell. Because we don't, as far as I understand, maybe they do now, but back, we personally, when I was a Southern Baptist, we didn't condemn the Jews for the death of Jesus Christ, and other kinds of Baptists, well, that's you're a heret, you're committing a heresy.
This is stressful. Very nice, Dave. Well, I grew up the traditional Baptist way in that we just blamed the Catholics.
Yeah, that was part of it. That was part of our Southern Baptists. We hated the Catholics.
Are they really Christians? I don't know.
Yeah. I remember.
I mean, they're basically polytheists, I think, right?
They're polytheists, monotheists, my friend. That's what they are.
I remember a young woman in my life years ago who accused me of being a Mormon, and I explained my religion, and she accused me of being a Latter-day Saint, and I explained my religion again, and she accused me of being something else, and then insisted that I go to her church, which was pretty cool. There were some nice people there. But yeah, the understanding of one form of Christianity to another in this world is pathetic. I mean, most people don't understand their own form of Christianity, much less anyone else's. That's why
Can I ask, what was your denomination, Dave?
Pardon?
Can I ask what your denomination was?
I was with the Community of Christ, with their former reorganized Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. They changed their name, and they were formerly LDS, but that was back in the 1800s or something like that. So.
Okay.
They were the church that sold the Book of Mormon to the Mormon Church for $35 million in 2018.
Oh.
Yeah, I've been finding out we have a pretty strong Mormon contingent here in Michigan that I never really recognized or knew about.
Well, the Romneys are from Michigan, aren't they?
Originally, Mitt Romney's dad was our governor at one point.
Stress brick.
Yeah. And then we also have like Scientology pretty bad here, but I've known that for a while. But yeah, we have a temple right downtown Battle Creek, and if it's here in Battle Creek, it's everywhere in Michigan.
We have one here that looks like an office building right in the middle of downtown, next to the university.
So, what battle is Battle Creek named after?
I believe, man, you're gonna get me in trouble with all the Michiganders.
No.
Somebody asked me this before. I believe it was an old Native American battle. It wasn't anything to do with the Revolutionary War or nothing. But I could be wrong about that. But I believe, we have a Native American in our flag, and I believe that it was an old battle with the Native Americans that lived here.
Sure.
I believe we have a Native American in our flag, and I believe that. Yeah, I actually took most of my history lessons down in North Carolina, so I missed out on most of the Michigan State history.
You learned about the War of Northern Aggression rage, and that's what's important.
Yeah, and I learned about that from the Southern perspective. I had to actually re-look at the Civil War after I left the South and educate myself again when it came to the Civil War.
I had a high school teacher, and this is, in Massachusetts, try to give me the Civil War was about states' rights kind of BS. And this, I think I was a sophomore at the time. And I'm like, that doesn't sound right. It doesn't sound right at all.
Yeah, that's pretty much what they taught us, and it's an age-old white supremacy propaganda from the late 1800s that's been around forever. I can't remember what they call it. I had a debate about it with C.J. Cox. I just can't remember what they call it right now.
Right.
Yeah, I remember seeing that. The debate, sorry.
Yeah, like I don't understand anybody that's against taking down these statues. Like at this point in history, like you should have a good enough grasp of history to understand like why these statues need to be brought down out of public squares and put into a museum. It seems pretty common sense to me at this point.
Yeah, they need to be, well, even if they were all put into like one memorial area where they did tours, like kind of the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier sort of deal, where they have people there to lead you through what's going on and what things mean and where things are from.
And we have a ton of them. We could set up national museums throughout the country to where, each zone of the country would, logistically have one to where they could go and learn the true history, both sides of it, and not whitewash any of it. Don't demonize the Southerners. Let's talk about what they really, talk about it for what it really was. But both sides, it seems, try to whitewash the issue, and that's not what I'm for. I'm like, take the statues down and let's teach the real history in a place where it can be controlled,
And then there's the GOP trying to pass the bill where they don't teach slavery in school.
Yeah, you gotta
it's
teach
ridiculous.
the good things about slavery. You gotta teach the good, the bad about slavery.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you can. There's good things about the South during that area. There was like really good people assisting in the Underground Railroad, people assisting in the liberation of people. Like you can there's nuance to every story, I guess, is my point.
There's the worst argument that I've heard for slavery is that not all slavery was a tragic end for the people there. They got shelter, they got food, they had their own families, they had and sometimes they had their own building to live in outside of the homeowner or the landowner, whatever, and they were well taken care of. But those are the rarest of circumstances.
Mm-hmm.
Like there are people out there who, as their sexual fetish, get into rape play, but that doesn't mean that all rape is good, because 1% of the people who are into that have a good experience with it, right? Like that's the worst argument for anything I've ever heard.
And the propaganda from the South, or not from the white supremacy, I should say, not just the South, because it was evident everywhere at the end of the Civil War. It pretty much says that. Like, I forgot my point. I don't know. I'm high.
Good for you. I just want to, for those of you who haven't been in the backstage, there's a private chat that goes on here. And Sammy, you want to just explain what you shared with me?
Well,
or shared with the group?
All right. Here we go. Share that.
All right, here we go.
So this is the Huffington Post.
Oh yeah.
Dutch designer Mark Sturkenboom has just created a sex toy that includes a mini urn to hold the cremated remains of that special someone. So the box can also come with a perfume diffuser that can hold the departed signature's scent.
Ooh.
So he sometimes helps an elderly lady with her groceries, and had an urn standing near the window, which didn't reflect how she felt about her husband. And at the same time, he was reading an article about widows, taboos, and sex, and thought, how could he combine those things? So come up with this urn in a dildo idea. But how's this in true Huffington Post style? Designer dildo contained loved ones' cremated ashes. And look at this last sentence here. He stated, "I would much appreciate if the terms sex toy or dildo are not in the headlines," he told Huffington Post by email. It's a conversational piece, a metaphor. And so obviously they turned straight around and
They're like, F you. We're doing whatever we want to do.
Yeah.
That actually reminded me of my point. So thank you, Sammy. Like my point was the propaganda always promoted and sought out that 1%, as Dave was talking about, that were doing it right. And they would say, that was how it was across the South, and we all treat our slaves this way. And they would bring out, certain slaves that would talk about how they loved being slaves. And that was just always part of the propaganda leading right up into the Jim Crow era.
Yeah, I wouldn't say they loved being slaves, but they were happy to have a roof over their head and food in their house and have their family taken care of.
They were indentured servants.
The speaking mouths that they would bring out.
Slaves.
Much, yeah.
They were volunteers, God damn it.
Volunteers, that's right. Unpaid internship, that's what it was.
To be fair, they were voluntold.
Voluntold, that's right. Yeah.
But it happens in all cultures, though. Like, I fought against Cherokees because Cherokees try to whitewash their own history of keeping slaves, because to them it elevated them above black people in the eyes of white men, so they kept their own slaves. And the Cherokees try to whitewash that a lot of times. I get into a lot of arguments with a lot of different Cherokees about it.
Yeah. Slavery is just one of those things that has happened many, many times in our history as a species. But what was particularly pernicious about American-style slavery is that it was married to American-style capitalism and the Industrial Revolution and factory farming, for all intents and purposes. And it brought out the worst aspects of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was horrible to begin with. And then you think to yourself, how could it be more possible? How could it be more horrible than it is? It's like, wait, have you heard about the cotton gin?
Yeah. Have you heard about how many people died?
Yeah.
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 And not just the ones who were murdered, but the ones who were actually worked to death.
Well, I want to bring this up too about how class and race intersect too. I was listening to this left podcast. It's called The Dig, done by a guy down in Providence, Rhode Island. And during the Jim Crow era, there were conflicts between the Communist Party in Deep South and the NAACP. Well, some members of the NAACP, some store owners, some of the more affluent people in the Black community, because some people didn't mind segregation because they had a customer base that the customers had to go to them, and the communists were like, well, this is wrong, and we should all be working to get rid of segregation, to get rid of these Jim Crow laws. So there are conflicts within racial groups, even amongst persecuted minorities here in the States. It always has been. And that was a pretty radical thing I just said, by the way. And if there were, I'd probably get some hate mail on that.
Isn't that what the after party's for, though?
Yeah, hate mail, right?
Yeah.
We rated our 6 minutes. Isn't it 6 minutes or something? You got to wait on YouTube before you can.
That's right.
Start dropping
F-bombs. I think it's 6 minutes and 43 seconds into your podcast before you start raging out and bothering people, engaging with them in a difficult way. Yeah. Yeah. But Andy, remember when you said this is one of those things that keeps my channel from being popular?
That's the thing.
Let's just put another slash on the wall next to that.
Just checking it off. Yeah, exactly.
I don't know. I think there's a lot of people out there who need to see have their perspective opened up a little wider.
Yeah, it's true in a responsible way. In a responsible way. Even when I just said what I just said, I'm like, well, you can check out. I think it's the most recent podcast too on The Dig, which once again, if you're talking about left politics, left history, it's a good podcast to listen to.
Yeah, I tell people all the time that I'm engaging with, especially theists. I'm like, don't take my word for it. Go look it up yourself, because the first person you're going to believe is you. So look this up. I'm just some guy off the internet, right? Like, you should double check everything, maybe triple check everything you hear from me, because sometimes I make shit up. So, I tell them, do your own research, because once they start engaging in research and they find out things for themselves, the next time they hear something that they question, they might do more research. Yeah.
What you're trying to do is create this virtuous cycle, right? You're just trying to jumpstart the system. In a lot of ways, it's like, especially being online and talking with people, it's like I don't expect it. Are you gonna say things?
Sorry, no, you saying you don't expect.
I don't expect anyone to have an epiphany while I'm talking to them.
Right.
If I nudge them in one little direction. But I'm sorry, Sammy. I think I interrupted you. What were you saying?
No. I was just going to say, it almost sounds like reverse psychology that we pull on our kids.
Well,
it's like, I've got this thing that I know or that I think, but I don't really particularly want you to know about it. You can go and find out for yourself, but I'm not going to push it on you. As opposed to telling them, no, you're wrong, or this is what it is. They're not going to listen to that. Yeah. But let them think that there's something that they don't know or that they might be missing out on. They'll race to find out about it.
It changes as the child develops. So, younger children, they're far more accepting of what you say to them unquestioningly, right? So if you bring them up in a skeptical kind of way, that's really positive up until the time they become teenagers, and then they start spouting that back at you, and then and then you get to play debate. You get to do a debate basically with your child on a regular basis.
Yeah, I don't have my own children, and I try not to tamper with the lives of other children. But like the whole street epistemology idea of learn epistemology, learn about what you believe and why you believe it, and how you come to how you believe it. Right?
Yeah.
Like that's far more important than teaching children what to believe.
Yeah. Especially, and you can see this because there's a lot of kids, a lot of young adults who go to college who don't understand why they believe what they believe. And then they're confronted with alternative viewpoints for the first time, and they just get lost. They just get lost.
Right, and oftentimes they're just blatantly lied to about the truth of anything. Like I recently had a conversation about what was I'm gonna forget his name, the guy that was like brutally murdered back in the day for being gay, Ryan White, something like that, and these people were telling me, no, this guy was totally coming on to these people. And I'm like, dude, you can go and read the court transcripts and find out the truth easily. Well, and they did that. And like 2 days later, they came back to me. They're like, dude, my mind is blown. I was always told something completely different my entire life. It's just people are lied to blatantly. And it's algorithms pushing false narratives to people. It's one of the issues with the modern day social media.
It's one of those things I hate, and it's on both sides of the board. And it's, you've got to check what you hear. I've seen articles where a guy was shot in his home, and it was a brutal murder by the police, and everybody should stand up.
Matthew Shepard, thank you, Jesse Bear.
Matthew Shepard. But then you go and look at the details, and you find out this guy was in 4 car collisions in a wrecked car, drove back to his house, stood in his doorway with a shotgun, slammed the door shut, and then threatened to kill his wife before the police entered the building. It's like, okay, that guy wasn't shot in cold blood on his sofa. That guy was a danger to the public and had proven it multiple times over. So, don't die on that hill. Don't bring that garbage up and try to win people over with junk, right? There's lots of good instances out there that we can say, this is a really good reason to believe this, and this is a really good reason why we need to change this. We don't need to dig into the garbage and try to do what the other side is doing.
This is the trouble with social media too, especially if you're, a content creator, is that there is a rush to the story, right? There is a rush to get to the story first and to tell the story so that you get the most attention out of it. Being a satirist, I really don't have to worry about that, but I see it with a lot of other bloggers or with YouTube content creators, people on Twitter especially. And so it's very difficult to cite your sources and to do appropriate, research while you're in that model, while you're just really trying to punch things out fast.
I also think there is obviously a disinformation campaign from, and I don't want to say one side or the other, but the extremists, let's call them. And when you see an article like that is easily debunked by Fox News and OAN and all those guys, you have to wonder if somebody put it out there to make the left look bad. Like, we're going to stand up for this guy.
That is counterinsurgency stuff, man. That is like counterintelligence, and that's what the right does. They throw out, these crazy ideas into the left zeitgeist, and those of us who take the bait fast and don't do their research and don't think skeptically, we just screw ourselves in the end.
So the right wing of America has been fairly extreme for a while, for decades and decades. I can think back to Newt Gingrich and what he was trying to pull off and when he was Speaker of the House. But when you look at the 90s and the early 2000 to 2010 time period when the alt-right were memeing themselves into existence and took over the right wing of America, the meme war, I would say probably the last decade, the left has really came back in the meme war and has started to do some damage there. But that meme war did a lot of damage to truth, and people don't really care about the truth. It's what they think, and that's what we face here in America.
Yep. I want to know. I don't want to think. That is that's like the banner. That's like the motto of today's country.
Yeah. Richard Spencer, an atrocious human being, but he won that meme war for the longest time, and nobody even knew who he was, what he was doing, and the alt-right took over, and it just kind of went crazy.
Yeah, well, this is the problem, Rage, is because I've been doing this for so long, and there was a time, especially early on, that I was just cranking out memes left and right. I think I got a Nobel Prize for having the #1 atheist meme on Google search for years, and this is true, by the way. I didn't get a Nobel Prize, but I was cranking out memes, but no one else I felt was really doing it, and I'm like, this is the most effective way of shooting out memes, like cognitive memes, right? Like the real word of memes, the Richard Dawkins term of memes, into people's minds is through these short visual images. And I didn't feel like the left was really doing that effectively 10 years ago, 15 years ago.
I'm sorry, I got to unmute. I kind of want to disagree slightly, John Hudson in the chat. Right and far left, to be fair. I'm not sure if you're addressing what I'm talking about, but I don't really think that there is much of a far left in America. You can find them on Twitter within this community, sure, but there's just not a very big far left presence here in America. Shit, I mean, progressives get crapped on, and they are by no means far left. So I just don't think that there's a big enough contingent of the far left to be impactful in America at all.
You don't find any groups of red guards here. You don't find red, leftist militias, in even close to the same numbers, if any numbers at all, of to the right. So it isn't. It's important when we talk about the far right and the far left that it's not moral equivalency.
I can't even imagine what that would look like. What would a extreme left armed militia fight for?
Can I take this one?
Go ahead. I was going to start talking about Bolsheviks, Dave, but we got 4 minutes, 3 minutes left. Go ahead.
Most of the people that you see in the extreme left position, where they own guns and are out there to protect the progressive nature of the government and the integrity of the elections, are people who are born again leftists. They were far right extremists, and they were brought to the truth of something, and it hurt them to know that they were being lied to, and they switched sides. They didn't switch extremism, they switched sides. There's not a lot of them. Hopefully there'll be more of them in the future as they switch sides, and hopefully as they get to that left position, they'll understand, well, guns aren't necessary for this position. Political activism is.
Which is my stance.
I just want to put this in for a second. Yeah. Philosophical positions change a lot faster than character does. If you're a radical Christian, more than likely you're going to be a radical atheist.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead, Rach. I'm sorry.
Well, yeah, and I was just saying, like, that's my position. I'm anti-gun. I believe that the revolution should be political, not violent. But I do kind of wish that we actually had a real representation of the far left here in America, so people could understand what that would actually look like, instead of trying to portray like Joe Biden as that, or whoever it is that they're trying to portray this week. Bernie Sanders, Bernie Sanders isn't far left. He's not. He's very moderate.
Well, I also want to talk about what a far left militia would look like. And you could just look at, once again, Tsarist Russia. You had the SRs assassinating government officials, right? The Tsar Alexander I was assassinated by, I believe, someone who was a social revolutionary. That's what you get with, and we just don't have that. We don't have a history of that, really. We had a few anarchists who were lone wolves. But in terms in this country of far left militias, we just didn't have anything even comparable to what we have in terms of the right.
Hey, Andy, before we go, and I know you have to take off.
Yes.
I just wanted to ask Rage and yourself. I wrote down a question while you were going through your earlier thing, and I thought, so what are the chances that the southern Trumper-filled U.S. states will restrict access to people who have been vaccinated?
Oh, I like that. I like that question. Definitely businesses will. We talked about that one school in Florida who told teachers who got vaccinated not to come back. So there are definitely some wingnut businesses doing that already.
Well, I think it's
I can't believe that is a real question.
I know, right?
well, we have and I know we got to go, but we have politicians shilling this. They're making getting a vaccine cultural, and it is red wing politicians from red wing states. So I think that can be a breeding ground for discrimination. Definitely.
Yeah.
All right. On that note, we're going to leave. I'm sorry, Sammy. We just gave you a stroke, I think.
Yeah.
Everyone in the chat, thanks for showing up. Panel,
Thanks, everybody.
paneling, and we're out. Back tomorrow, everyone.
Sure.